Love you guys. All right. All right. Now I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So this unit is all on aggression. Okay. And we said that sometimes we'll, retaliate, but it depends on like the circumstances. It depends on the size of the person, the closeness of the person, uh, how frustrating it is, as in like at what point did they block us from a goal or something like that. We also know that the mere presence of a weapon, and this is called the weapons effect, the mere presence of a weapon, just having it nearby, increases the likelihood of aggression. So think of all the people who drive with like a gun rack in their truck and stuff like that. They're more likely to aggress. And how did they test this? They tested this by essentially having people play a video game, a competitive video game, and they measure the number of competitive moves um, when they had a badminton racket hanging on the wall versus a gun, and it like tripled or something like that. All right, here we go. Yeah, there it is. And that's that. Okay, you get the idea. So now we're going to talk about sexual aggressions. Um, and so, this could be a very, sensitive subject to many of us, period. So we're just going to push through it. Okay, rape. Penetration of any bodily orifice, any, with any part of the body or with any object. Sexual assault is a broader term, but essentially the lack of consent is the key criterion. What are the motivations? Some men commit rape to dominate, humiliate, or punish. Men can be sexually assaulted by women too, however. 85% of all rapes or attempted rapes are acquaintance rape, meaning they know the perpetrator. And these may occur as a result of physical force or incapacitation. Alcohol, right? So within our species and other species, there's what we call sex scripts, right? It's these rules, these steps, these what have yous that are somewhat universal. And in short, in our species, it's the male of the species in a heterosexual interaction will offer, and the female accepts or rejects, and then the male just sort of like uh, escalates the offers. So sex scripts are a set of implicit rules, so it's not in writing, that specify proper sexual behavior for a person in a given situation, varying with the person's gender, age, religion, social status, and peer group. So how do we reduce the date and acquaintance rate? Uh, what are the cultural norms, right? So what's the in some cultures, sex is the prerogative of the male, right? The power of perceptions, expectations, and beliefs. Um, what does that mean? That means essentially that there are allowances afforded to men that are not afforded to women. So women may want to have sex, but they feel like if they do, then they'll be considered, less than savory, we'll say, right? So uh, easy. Um, so so what does that mean, right? What does it mean when they, huh? All right. When they asked men and women, college men and women, when a woman says no, should the male stop? And 90 some percent said, yeah, they should stop. When then they asked the question, well, does she mean it? And half of the women said no. What does that mean? Think about that. Anybody? So they all agree that the man should stop. If she says, all right, no more, no further. But then when they asked, well, does she mean it when she says no? The majority of the men said, yeah, she means it. Whereas half of the women said, no, she doesn't really, or I didn't really. So what does that do?
I think it's interesting that it was the women, half the women who said no.
Why is that interesting? Timmons,
Sorry.
you're gonna be
Um,
sorry.
Holy fuck, I can't hang up.
I don't know. Like I've never said no and not meant it.
Mm.
So, but I'm just one woman too.
Well, why would a woman say no and not mean it though?
I don't know. Maybe like afraid of the how they're going to be viewed by the person.
Yes, yes. It goes back to the sex scripts.
Right.
That if she says yes automatically, then she's easy.
That's true.
So she has to put up some sort of fight, some sort of, you know, uh, she has to engage in some sort of, I don't know. Plus, if you think about it, the female of our species and most other sexually reproducing species, they decide, right? They're
Hmm.
the deciders of things. So there has to be some sort of um, display, like in other species, like birds and stuff. Males have to like go all out. They have to like build bowers, or they have to sing perfect songs, or they have to dance,
Hmm.
or they have to jump a
Happy
certain,
feet.
literally they have to do that. Yeah,
Yeah.
happy feet, right? Okay, so this may be all a part of our adaptation, where the male has to go, no, okay, well, what if I did this? I don't know, right? So let's see. Men don't get to say testosterone made them do it, and then there's the think drink effect. Right? A lot of women will literally get drunk. They will drink alcohol just so they have an excuse to have sex. Think about that. For the same reasons they have to say no the first time. Any comments? Any feedback? No, nothing. Okay. So what I've always said, and I think it actually started to come out, but I've been saying this for years. Um, it should never have been no means no. What should it have been all along?
Heard you say it and I can't remember.
It should have been all along. Yes means yes. The that's it should be a yes. It should be an affirmative, not the absence of a no, and not no. No should always be no. Now, I'm not saying it shouldn't, but what I'm teaching my sons is, you know, if you want, to get intimate with someone, you need to hear yes,
Hmm.
not the absence of no. And obviously, no means no. But even without a no, you need to hear a yes. Like you go, you're into this, right? Before we do anything. Yes means
Right.
yes. It has to be an affirmation, right? Violence and the media. Does watching violence increase aggressive behavior? So the independent variable of this experiment was exposing people to violent media, right? Some of them watched violent police drama, and the others watched a nonviolent sports event. Then they wanted to see how it impacted their play behavior with their friends. And the results were that they were more violent after watching violent media. Actively watching violent video games has a stronger influence. Games that directly promote violence increase hostility, aggressive thoughts, and aggressive acts. Does playing first person shooter games make people more violent, or are people who have violent tendencies to begin with, are they drawn to such games? Or could it be both? So, are we numbing people to difficult, violent, and unpleasant events? Right? So when we see things on the news, right? Oh, yeah, there's another shooting. Oh, yeah, there's another homicide. Oh, yeah, there's another thing. So as we are exposed to these things on the regular, it increases our indifference in media, right? It increases the indifference to real victims of violence. when we're watching violent movies, of which I watched two violent movies last night, and I love them both. They're like in the top of my. One of them was Logan. I love that movie. Yep. For some reason I kind of knew Autumn was gonna like that one. I don't know how I knew that, but
I love that one.
yeah, it's just it was such a good story too. You know, I don't know. Anyway, but very violent, very violent. Okay, and
Yeah.
the other one was even worse, if you could believe that. It was Mad Max Road Warrior.
I don't know it.
That's from
I love
1981.
Mad
I was,
Max.
huh? Somebody talking?
I love the Mad Max movies.
The old ones though, the originals.
Yes, those are the best.
There you go. There you go. Well, on demand, it's free on demand for the cable Road Warrior. So I watched that last night. Haven't watched that in years. That came out when I was 3 years old.
I watched Bohemian Rhapsody last night, so.
Nice. That's it. That's my
Oh,
dad's
I've
favorite movie.
I was obsessed with that movie when it first came out. It was so good.
Yeah, my 14-year-old loves that movie.
Yep.
Let's see. So in our video games, we are repeatedly dehumanizing the enemy, and this can affect how people, regard real people, not just people in video games. So why does watching media violence have these negative consequences? Well, it'll increase our physiological arousal and excitement. It triggers an automatic tendency to imitate hostile or violent characters. It primes existing aggressive ideas and expectations, and it models social scripts. And these are approved ways of behaving when we are frustrated, angry, or hurt. So, what are longitudinal studies? What does that mean?
Are those the ones where they're studied at separate intervals or different intervals over an extended period of time?
Well, it's
Like
just
years?
yes, yes. So it's studying the same individuals over a long period of time. Yeah.
Right.
So they wanted to know if watching more TV violence in childhood was associated with more violent behavior in adolescence and adulthood. And what they found was when they looked at 700 families over the course of 17 years, that TV watching in adolescence predicted violence against others in adulthood. Looking at elementary school children, viewing more media violence at the beginning of school year predicted more aggression and less pro-social behavior at the end of the year.
Question.
Yes.
Now you're watching violent movies. So what's the effect on you?
What's the effect on me?
Yeah.
For me, the Logan, I like the story in Logan, and it's not even so much the violent part. Or the violence. I just like the idea of like him having like the character having like a little girl who's just like him, and he basically dies to save her life. I'm like a softie like that. And then for Mad Max, which is really violent, it's nostalgic. It sounds silly, but it's like I remember being little and watching it. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah. But I can tell you what it does do. The first, whereas it increases my physiological arousal. Like it does get my heart pumping.
Okay.
Yeah. The question is the direction of causality. What does that mean? It means are is what being exposed to violent media, is that leading to aggression, or are aggressive people kind of drawn to it? Maybe aggressive people prefer violent TV, right? The other one is watching violent TV may make people aggressive, or it could be both. So viewing violence has strongest effects on those already inclined to behaving violently. It sort of gives permission to express negative inclinations. So how does media violence affect viewers' aggression? First, if they can do it, so can I. Second, oh, so that's how you do it. How many times have you guys watched Forensic Files or Snapped and been like, you get a lawyer, or the first 48?
Literally. Yeah.
Seriously, you're like, get a lawyer. No, you do not talk. That's rule number one. do not talk, right? Those feelings I am having must be real anger rather than simply a stressful day. Ho hum, another brutal beating. Uh, what's on the other channel? And then 5, I had better get him before he gets me. So, how do we decrease aggression? If aggressive act is used for punishment, the punishers are modeling aggressive behavior. And this might induce a person to imitate their actions. It's one of the reasons why you shouldn't hit your kids. I'll tell you what, my kids are all going to be yellers because I'm always yelling at my kids. I wish I didn't, but I don't hit them. I yell at them though. Constantly yelling at them.
I'm a yeller too. I feel so bad. My mom was a yeller and I hated it. No,
Yeah.
I am.
My parents were yellers. My parents weren't hit. My mom was a hitter.
My mom was too.
Yeah. She used to hit us all the time, spank us all the time. My dad never did. I don't remember him ever hitting me, never, which is weird. But man, did he scare me. Anyway, the threat of mild punishment. If it's powerful enough to get the child to stop the undesired activity, then because of cognitive dissonance and justification of effort, they have to change their values. They have to change their beliefs about things. So we find that with the threats of mild punishment, if it actually works to get the child to stop doing whatever you want them to stop doing, they start then to believe that that is a wrong act because the internal justification, or I should say the external justification, isn't there. So they have to somewhat agree with it. I don't think I made sense of that, did I? No, good. Thank you for saying no. Okay. It means this. Here's a kid who's poking his sister in the eye, right? You say, you poke your sister in the eye, I'm gonna hit you with a belt. Now that is enough external justification for the boy to stop poking his sister in the eye. So the only reason why the boy is not poking his sister in the eye is so to avoid getting hit by a belt. Right? So that's a severe punishment. But if you can say stop poking your sister in the eye, or you're not going to be able to play video games tonight, that's a mild punishment. So if the boy actually stops as a result of that threat, if the boy actually stops, it's not, the justification isn't strong enough externally. Like it's just, that's a mild punishment. But if the boy actually does stop, then that means there has to be some way he's going to have to rationalize for some reason why he's stopping. And without even realizing it, because the external justification isn't there, he's actually going to change his way of thinking. And that is, well, why am I not doing it? I guess it is wrong. I don't know. I guess it's wrong. And slowly over time, the boy really starts to believe that it is wrong because the punishment wasn't severe enough. It's like don't steal from other people, otherwise you'll go to jail, right? So if these people, so what happens is if people don't rob banks and stuff as a result of being afraid of going to jail, they still think that it's okay to rob banks, but they're not doing it because they don't want to go to jail. So their values haven't changed. They're just, their behaviors have. So if you have a mild punishment, you change not only the behavior, but also the values. Is that any closer to understanding? You're like, not really.
Yeah.
What, Chloe?
Yeah, I understand it.
You do understand? Okay. So I've always said, you want your kids to be good, be good. You want them to swear, swear. You want them to hit, hit. You want them to yell, yell. You want them to love, love. You want them to be,
Yeah.
be patient.
My parents swear all the time, and I have bad potty mouth.
Yeah. So do I. But it gets really bad when I'm around my brothers.
Like that's how I am with my brothers and my
Yeah.
friends. Like I'm
Yeah.
playing video games, I swear a lot.
Same. I get really, really, really loose when I'm around my brothers. I don't understand it. It's almost like all of my inhibitions just go away. I'm just like, hey, we doing you effing that frickin',
Yeah.
It's weird. Every time we get together for Christmas, so I feel like half of my words are curse words. It's ridiculous. I have
Yeah,
four
because my parents used to argue, they always swear, and
I rarely swear. Like, well, first of all, my wife and I rarely argue, believe it or not, because we just are both in agreement on most everything. Wouldn't you
my
agree,
sister's
Jay?
good
We
though.
don't really fight much, do we? No, we yell at you guys a lot, though. Yeah. That's yeah.
My sister's 4 and she knows not to swear. Like she won't do it. And that I'm very happy for that.
My 14-year-old, my 14-year-old, my 9-year-old, my 7-year-old, my daughters all figure skate. And Monday, my 14-year-old came back from skating practice, and someone in her group or a nearby group who's in what, 5th grade, I think, something like that. She came home, and my 14-year-old was like flabbergasted because the kid said, she goes, she said HE double hockey sticks, and I'm like wow, that's kind of young. She's like, I know. I felt like telling her, hey, slow your roll, man, because you know we didn't start saying that word until we were like in 7th or 8th grade, and there was like a 4th grader or something that said eight, hell or whatever. I still, it was, yeah, I think it was right. Yeah, all right, okay, let it go, anyway. So, harsh punishment, when used with children, it may backfire. It doesn't model appropriate behavior when used with adults. It can act as a deterrent, but it must be swift and certain. Catharsis and aggression, right? Venting. Conventional wisdom suggests doing something aggressive to reduce feelings of aggression, to get it out of your system. This oversimplifies the psychoanalytic notion of catharsis, right? So these two, I'm guessing that's a soccer game. People love to fight soccer games. The effects of aggression, that's right, Jerry. The effects of aggression acts, or the effects of aggressive acts on subsequent aggression. Does aggressive behavior reduce the need for further aggression? Generally speaking, the answer is no. In fact, it tends to increase further aggression. So competitive games increase aggression. What about watching aggressive games? Will that reduce aggressive behavior? Again, no. Watching aggression also increases aggression. Does direct aggression against the source of your anger reduce further aggression? The answer is no. Blaming the victim of our aggression. Participants who inflicted psychological or physical harm on an innocent person derogated their victims. They convinced themselves the victim deserved what they got, and that made it easier for them to harm the victim in the future. How they did this is they had a study where they didn't know the other person, but they weren't forced, but they were asked to shock the other person. Um, and then when they asked, how do you think about that? How do you feel about the other person? They're like, oh yeah, that person deserved it. You don't even know that person. So what are we supposed to do with our anger? We control our anger by actively enabling it to dissipate. Count to 10, take deep breaths. Venting versus self-awareness. If a close friend or spouse makes you angry, expressing anger may allow you to gain insight into yourself and the dynamics of the relationship. So you want to express your feelings in a way that is not hostile or demeaning. So think about that for a second. If you are upset with your spouse or a friend or something, it could give you insight. It could give you a better understanding, both about what things are that you don't like, what things are that are your pet peeves are specifically. But it also can give you insight into, it says, the dynamics of the relationship, as in it could make you not just only self-aware, but it can make you aware of how healthy your relationship is or how unhealthy your relationship is. And it could give you a good opportunity to think about that, and should you move on or should you work to fix that problem? To resolve conflict, it is best to reveal anger to the person who provoked you, but it can be helpful to write down your feelings in a journal, and there are benefits of opening up. This is not due to venting, it's due to the insights and self-awareness we gain. Of course, feeling angry is part of being human, but the problem is not the anger, but how we express it. So those who lack the skills often react aggressively, And we could provide formal training, can reduce aggression. Countering dehumanization by building empathy. If we try to take the perspective of the aggressor, it reduces aggression. It's harder to aggress when one feels a personal connection with a person. Empathy is a skill that can be taught. How would you teach another individual empathy? Like Autumn and Mimi, you two have children. Aren't you always trying to, you see any opportunity you see to, as an exercise of empathy, you take it, don't you?
Mhm.
I do.
Yes, you do. I know you do, because you both are good parents. So, how do we do?
Yesterday, my 9-year-old told me that he hated me. So
Uh-huh.
he goes, "Since when did I say that?"
So, what are we doing then? What are you doing to teach empathy? What opportunities, Mimi, have you seized? Or can you give me an example of an opportunity that you would seize or use to teach empathy, the value of empathy?
Um, I speak a lot with Lily, Sammy also, because we don't see other kids around us, but when things happen in the house or
Mm-hmm.
she's watching a video and somebody gets hurt or something, this is the only way to tell her, oh, see, Lily, we sometimes I tell her that we have to pray for them, we have to ask about them,
Mm-hmm.
give them a hug. Sometimes we do it with the teddy bears and the stuffed animals because we don't have kids around.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Good.
I try to find a way to explain to her.
Mm-hmm. Even if it's not a plan, it just comes up, right? Like you said, they're watching a kid show on TV, right? You just said, and you didn't plan to have this discussion, but you saw an opportunity and you took it.
Yes.
Yes, that's right. And we really don't, as parents, as parents, we should. Most parents should. All parents should. I know you guys do. I know you two do. But we really don't want to let those opportunities go either. Even if we're tired, we always go, oh, okay, here we go. Got to address this. Because that's our job, to make good people. So children who are taught to put themselves in others' shoes often have higher self-esteem, are more generous, and less aggressive than children who lack skills of empathy. Social rejection is a significant risk factor for teenage suicide, despair, and violence. Most teenagers who have committed murders were bullied or rejected by peers. The awareness, empathy training, and bully reduction programs in school can reduce bullying. All right, that's it for that. Okay, I'm gonna stop recording.